see all of you here. Very good morning to people in this part of the world. But what time is it? Is it in Atlanta, Georgia? Uh, is it late at night or?
It's 8 p.m. right now.
Okay. Very good evening to y'all in Georgia. All right. So very happy and glad to be here today to be sharing this topic with all of you. Quick background is I run my own management consulting firm, basically in broad-based consulting, anything between strategy, HR, business process, as well as even change management in Malaysia primarily, but sometimes I get to do some work in region. As mentioned, prior to setting up my own firm, I was with PwC Advisory Malaysia, also servicing this region, but primarily was in the area of HR advisory. Started my career in operations. I used to work for a Hong Kong multinational called Li and Fung. We were the biggest, or they were the biggest contract manufacturer in Asia Pac for FMCG. And after 5 year operations, I decided to move on into training and consulting. And yeah, that's basically my background. Just a clarification, don't work for LinkedIn, but actively promoting LinkedIn to all undergraduates because I feel that LinkedIn is a very powerful channel to get undergraduates get connected with professionals, especially the undergraduates here in Malaysia who are very unexposed. And one of the you reasons why youth unemployability is also significantly high because of lack of interaction with professionals while they are studying. So I've been going around university last 3 years just to promote the agenda. I'm speaking more than 9,000 students so far. And yeah, that's very basically who I am. Okay, so let me just quickly jump into the session since we don't have much time. Uh, So feel free to ask drop me any questions as I go along, as well as also you can ask me later on in that sense. Okay, one moment. Here we go. So this morning was actually asked to present some techniques on case pitching, and I understand all of you are undertaking this case review. So my focus is just what to do and what to prepare in the presentation. So basically, if I were to put it in a summation, there are 5 things to look at. Importantly, in the time that you are allowed to present, the key thing to remind yourself over and over again, or the overarching theme for that 10 minutes or 15 minutes, whichever that applies, is what is the key message that you want to deliver to your audience or to the judges, whichever in this case, right? So that is paramount. So do not get lost in the nice visual aids, the nice content, or even your structure or everything else. Importantly, don't forget the message. So that's why we always start with the message, and that message you may want to re-emphasize over and over again. And probably all of you have seen Hollywood trailers. I would say that you have seen Hollywood trailers, uh, those 2 minutes trailers that you watch any Hollywood movie. You'll find that in that 2 minutes trailer is always the bang, and it's the most exciting part of the 2 hours movie. So they joke that you just watch the 2 minutes is enough because the rest of the 2 hours may not be as exciting. So similarly, in your presentation, you need to create that 2 minutes Hollywood movie trailer experience for your audience, which is coming up with a very strong bang and leaving them with the core message that you want to leave them. So looking at this, that becomes the important portion of it. And defining that message will then next focus on what type of structure for your presentation. the type of content that you want to include, what would be the visual aids to help you, and finally, of course, how you want to deliver this. So 2, 3, and 4, very quickly, I just want to talk about it. This 2, 3, and 4 is the painful one, because a lot of times, especially when we do our research and when we do our recommendation, we will find that we will have quite a bit of content to share. And today, with the access that you all have, you probably have more content rather than less content. So this is where the painful decision is needed to be made by yourself or even your teammates to really distill what is the essence and what is the core that you want to really share, and how does that reinforce your message. So that's why we always talk about the message that you want to deliver first, becoming that paramount importance, and the rest of it is just a supporting cast or the supporting actor and actresses. So do not over dwell in the content and the visuals. Some of us get very attached to say, oh, we must show this graph because it's so impactful. But then that's where the question then lies, how does this graph or how does this visual support our case or support our message? Or we have all this content that we wanted to share. The other question is, how does this content able to support it? Are we able to summarize it, and so on and so forth? So that 2, 3, and 4 in the middle is the one that I find usually is the hardest, because it is not, you don't have stuff, you have too much stuff and you don't know which one to really share in that sense, all right? And lastly, of course, the delivery method is something to really explore. And in today's COVID season where everybody is going virtually, we got to need to really understand how you're able to do visual presentation in a more effective manner. And I would really encourage all of you, if your final presentation is in a virtual format, really get to understand some of the do and don'ts of how to present virtually. And just a quick tip, I won't go into details onto that, but I'll just give you a quick tip. Visual presentation has very much to do with the platform that you're using. So please familiarize yourself with the platform and the functionality of the platform and the features, and what are the features that you can use to your advantage during your presentation, right? That is a core, right? So the core is really understanding the platform, and make sure that you are well versed in the platform before you go onto the so-called stage. So if you are always been using Zoom and your final presentation is in something else like Webex or whatever, which you have never tried, please make sure you ground yourself in Cisco Webex for the next 2 weeks before your presentation, because it is very, very important in today's context. But in a normal context, of course, your setting, if let's say it's a face-to-face presentation, it is also your setting and your space you have for you to decide what kind of delivery methodology that you want to go ahead, right? Now, so this important question of content versus delivery, which is more important, right? And of course, in a lot of cases, substance is still being championed as the key. However, in today's world where we are inundated with a lot of information, and there's an overload of ideas, recommendation, perspectives into our faces, so to say. The delivery methodology then becomes the winning criteria, I would say. So it becomes very, very critical for you to think of a very interesting and attractive manner for you to deliver a message so that it will stick, although your content could be parallel or synonymous with another group. So today, that has become more and more important. Not only just that knowing the content because of accessibility to knowledge, to resources, but the way of how to innovatively and creatively to deliver the message. So that, in my opinion, becomes very, very important. So don't underplay the delivery. Because I know a lot of learned people tend to say, no, our content will speak for itself, and people will appreciate good content no matter you don't need all the bells and whistles, so to say. But in actual fact, the bells and whistles are the one that really pushing in the agenda for a lot of people. And as the cliche goes in a lot of storytelling methodology that you will hear, facts, story sells, and facts tell. So in a lot of cases, human beings don't like to be told. They want to be engaged emotionally with what you want to share. And then that emotive functionality is, of course, delivered by how you deliver. It's a matter of delivery. Okay, right. So coming back, very important, your 10 or 15 minutes is to grab attention, and to grab attention. So still remember the 2 minutes Hollywood trailer analogy, very, very useful when you design and your presentation for your pitch. And also be very realistic as I come back again. This is where you need to make the hard decisions of what you actually want to present. Not everything that you want, you need to present, or not everything that you have researched for or you prepared for, you need to present. In fact, keep a practice of keeping addendums in your presentation slides. So probably you only want to prepare 10, you can prepare 30 slides, but maybe choose the 10 that you want to present and keep the rest 20 in the appendix or the addendum. In which case, if there is a Q&A section, you can have that to support you to refer it or to pull it up to create that visualization, right? So don't need to lump everything in, and be very, very realistic. So very related to this point is I always like to follow the work of Guy Kawasaki. Guy is, of course, the former chief evangelist officer of Apple. He has this idea of doing a 10, 20, 30 formula. So what is 10? 10 is the maximum of slides you should have in your final pitch, right? 20 in his perspective is if you plan for a 1 hour meeting presentation, just expect you get to speak 20 minutes, right? And 30 in Guy's case is the minimum font size that should appear on your slides. Chances are, of course, today is better if it's done virtually, but on a room setting, chances are, depending on how far they sit in the screen, your audience, they can't see if it's too small. But 30 is a very good font size to maintain because it creates the kind of impact and you'll see it then, right? So for this intent, probably you just want to play around and looking at if it's a 10 minutes or so speed. I just modify it into a 10, 30, 30. So my center 30 is actually the time you should spend for each slide. So it's still 10 slides maximum you should do. Of course, you can prepare more, keep it in appendix. 30 seconds is the time that you should spend on each slide. And 30 is also the minimum font size you should have, right? And just a very quick one for virtual presentation, the trick is also to stop talk non-stop, because they've also found for research any delay between 1.2 seconds that's how fast it is. It will create some sort of disengagement with your audience. So if you're doing virtual presentation like that, it's okay to go bang, 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 bang. That's why if you watch some of those more influencer YouTuber, that's what they do. You find it very annoying to start with, but that's what they do. They literally speak non-stop, and that's how they get all their engagement and attention. So similarly, this is one concept that you may want to adopt. No need to pause and marvel and talk too slowly. The faster you talk, that creates that kind of excitement. This is purely because of virtual format. Of course, if you do a face-to-face, this may not apply, right? Okay, so very quickly, I think this is very, very innate just to look at how you should present in the structure. Very simple, again, just to ask that who, why, what, and how, and in particular in that order. And again, who are you talking to? Why they should listen to you? and what is the one that you want to present, and how that this idea of yours will be executed, right? So very simple in that sense, okay? And yeah, just like to reinforce what I just said. Now, it is important to keep asking yourself this question: what you want them to know, feel, and do as a result of your presentation. So I maybe would just restructure this, because we are all human beings. So the emotive form of us will always get uh, triggered first in our system, yeah, in that sense, versus the cognitive part. So it is important that you address the emotive portion. That's why always start with the so-called problem statement that actually touches the heart of your audience, especially your judges, why they need to understand what you are trying to share with them. And once you address the emotive part, then the cognitive part, or the know, or the knowledge, so to say, will just sink in. They found that most human beings will tend to use the cognitive part to justify the emotive part. Just like how you look at certain things that you like on a e-commerce site and you decide to buy it. And then actually the emotional part that force you to buy, or get you to buy. But later on, you will justify it with the reason and rationale why you buy it, because of the features, because of the cost and things like that. But it's always the emotional that precedes the cognitive part, or the rational part. So that is the very, very important thing to remember. And the do part is really a call to action. So do make sure in your structure, you can actually do the call to action at the start of your presentation, at the middle of your presentation, or at the end of your presentation, or to do it repeatedly and in that order, so that you are continuously reinforcing that message to your audience why you're sharing what you're sharing. So that is the key portion. Okay. So how to structure that? I'm just sharing this one generic structure that you can use. First is to look at your introduction, definitely. And in your introduction, these are the few things that you want to look at. Your opening remarks, in that sense, that initial hook that you want to give to your audience to get them excited or interested in your presentation. And then come to what is your introduction. And your introduction can have two focus. One is who you are, very briefly, as well as also looking at what is the current landscape, defining the problem statement or the case in this particular, right? And then come to the content. And when you come to the content here, then you can outline from the problem statement to your objectives, and then with that objectives, very quickly share your analysis of what is working, what is not working. Of course, we are prescribing SWOT analysis here. You may use other different form of analysis to break down the problem in that sense. And then also share your research data. Now, research data is a very important portion. And one perspective that I want to share, because I also involved in quite a bit of startup competitions and pitch case. In the startup culture, which I think is very positive, although I'm not trying to ask you all to mimic exactly what the startup people do, but in the startup culture, one of the important key point is talking about validation. And validation here can go both quantitative and qualitative. So if you can move your research data from desktop research into something that you want to propose in the solution thing, somewhere in between that, if you can do some bit of validation, will be very useful. And that validation, you can actually focus to a target market that you are trying to propose the solution to, or to the communities or stakeholders that will be impacted with your recommendation, right? So this is almost like a test case study. You just do a very quick experimentation to get some confirmation of what your perspective and recommendation are. And this quick experimentation could be both in quantitative format, which you can dish out survey forms, or in that sense, or you can do interview sessions to get qualitative data. In fact, qualitative data is very, very critical importance, and this is where you are translating classroom ideas into very, very practical, real world or corporate solutions, so to say, right? So in between the research data and the solutioning, you may want to include this validation point, right? And then, of course, coming back with a recommendation and the conclusion, the summary of what you all have shared, and as well as what will be the concluding message. So like I was sharing, the key message can be further re-emphasized at the introduction, during the main content as you're sharing, and also do it again when you conclude. So this would be the structure that we are sharing and recommending to all of you. Right. So steps for your preparation or presentation, of course, is to do a plan and make sure you have a very clear idea of who is doing what in your team. And ideally, this is where two things happens. You may want to take an executive call to say that we pick the best person to do the right job, right person for the right job. That would be much more reflective in the corporate or in the real world sense. But as a student, you may also want to take a call to say that this is something that I don't do very well, and I want to use this as a platform for me to try and practice and to learn, right? So this is one decision that you would need to discuss and decide among your team. My preference is for you to do something that you have never done before and you're not good at your current stage, because in the tertiary world, that's in your college and university, that is the best time to really explore and experiment everything, especially on your own capacity and capabilities. So that planning is very critical. I think the experience is more important than the outcome, right? Of course, all of us trying to get the best outcome or even to win the case, but more importantly is to make sure each and every member get the most optimum experience. And optimum experience here can include doing things that you have never done before, or doing things that you are not good at, so that you can have another go at it to make sure that you hone the skills that is important for your future, right? So that planning includes that, right? Preparation is, of course, a must in that sense to prepare what are the things needed, how you want to ensure that it's being executed, who does what. We already talked about that. But the next two is the very critical. It's all about practice, practice, and practice. And I cannot emphasize the significance of this. And you may want to use a test case group to practice as well. So if you can gather a group of 20 other friends who probably not in this particular case, or from your other communities, just to hear you out for an hour or two, just to give you feedback. And that will be very, very useful. So be very comfortable to receive feedback, be very comfortable to test, validate your ideas with a different group of people. And in today's world, there's no such thing as sharing ideas that is bad. So people were very protective of their ideas to say that I shouldn't share it with too many people of the world, then later somebody go and patent it and use it. But in today's context, the more you share your ideas, the more validated it gets. And the more validated it gets, then you know how feasible for you to execute it. And in this particular focus, it is even more important to do that. So if you can, I would really encourage you to schedule a mock session with some of your other friends, or even some of your lecturers, or whichever group that you can pull in to just hear you out for a short time, and then get some feedback for your enhancement and improvement. Do ask them what do they like first, so that you can pat yourself on the back to say a good job. And then next, ask them what you think you could improve. That will be a very good way. Okay. All right. So very quickly, just going through that four, as you plan, look at your audience, look at your goals and the message. So the key message is very important. Upfront, you need to really brainstorm and decide this. If you can clarify this as soon as possible will be good. But at times, because of the nature of how we operate, you may want to iterate this as you go along. So don't be too overly attached as well. Be willing to be adaptable and flexible as you go along the way, especially the key message. I think that is important. Storyboarding is a very good way of preparing a presentation. And I think there are many resources that you can use to do this. Just make sure that you have your 10 frames for the 10 slides. And that 10 frames is something for you to decide what type of wording, what type of visuals, and what would be your text in that sense. Now, when it comes to this, there are two school of thoughts. Some like to script it word for word, depending who is presenting at the end. Certain people do better if they scripted word after word for word. Certain people do very badly when they get this scripted. So decide which type of presenter you are. And in my opinion, there's no best so-called. Some people do better formal, some people do better in the latter sense. So decide who is doing what in that is important, right? Practice just some very reinforcement. So as I say, get some feedback. Very important. And of course, lastly, when you do present, make sure that you express the idea, state the problem, find a relatable story and the solution. And this has no in sequence. Sometimes you can start with the story first. And because people get emotionally more attached or more connected when you tell a story, a relatable story, you can even do your opening remarks as a relatable story. So that is something that you can really look into. Okay, and I think right, I'm coming almost to the end. So this is just a very quick snapshot of what a good presentation, some of the key components that you want to look at. Just to want to really focus on the last two, I think key message and logical flow is very given. Timing is very important. So make sure that you time yourself to perfection almost on what you need to deliver. And if you are a person that not doing scripting word for word, just make sure that you have buckets of 30 seconds, and every 30 seconds, you know what is the punchline or what is the parry line that you want to deliver to your audience for that so-called one slide, so to say, right? And whoever is presenting, your voice becomes very important as the emotional intelligence people will tell you that words is only less than 7% of how we communicate. 38% of the time is your voice and intonation, and as well as your gestures. So this one, again, I have got some inputs because as today, we are also operating in the virtual world. So even in the virtual world, gesture is also important. So if you can set up somehow your webcam to be also you are standing to present, then you have more ability to showcase your gestures, especially your hands gesture, like what I'm trying to do here. And also to make sure that you have enough good microphone to capture your voice so that it will come out both the intonation as well as how they want to hear it in that sense. So just pay more attention to your equipment given the current situation. Of course, in a face-to-face setting, probably this will be arranged by you, by the organizer or by the university in that sense. But in today's, when you're operating not in a centralized location, probably then this is something to look at. Okay, so yep, that is what I have. Probably then we can maybe open it up for discussion. Yeah.
Yep, thank you so much for the interesting talk, Mui Han. We really learned a lot. Now I'm going to pass the floor to Nina to moderate the Q&A session. Meanwhile, participants, if you have any question, feel free to send it into the group chat or send it to Nina so that or if you prefer, you can just unmute yourself and ask the question right away.
Yeah, so let's start with a few of the questions that we already have. So firstly, thank you so much for the presentation. I think everybody thoroughly enjoyed it. And some of the questions we have first is in terms of like a group presentation, how do you feel best to split up who presents what and how they go about delivering such a presentation?
So very quickly, unless it's defined in your how to say assessment rubrics, either by the organizer or by your lecturer. I mean, you can also apply this practice in your class assignments and things like that. Unless it's upfront defined that the group needs to present or everybody needs to present within the group, right? My preference is to choose your best presenter among yourself and just probably split it between either one person or 1 or 2%. Reason being is uh, doing a seamless transition from one speaker to another is not easy. And even in the professional corporate world, you find that no matter, especially those live telecasts you see, a lot of coordination and practice is needed. In fact, today they do a lot of live shows over the internet. They also found out that the quality of live shows actually get very severely impacted when we have multiple panelists in that sense. And more people are looking in the point that, just pre-assign or pre-record it. I mean, I'll give you an example. Since we got some friends in America, uh, America is very famous for the late night sitcom talk shows. And all these talk shows, if you look at it, the people are so good, the presenters are so good, the guests are wonderful in nature and engagement, but they are all pre-recorded live. What's the reason? Why don't they do it live itself? So there is a very specific reason why they do it pre-recorded live, because the amount of coordination needed from one person to another, that conversation piece, the angle to take, there is still some form of editing needed, although it's recorded live, right? So coming back to the point, using that analogy, in my opinion, when you do a presentation, unless it's specified that everybody needs to present, my opinion that you don't need that entire group to present, because that transition is not so easy to create a seamless experience for your audience or for your judges, right? So just make sure that if you want some variation, just choose between two speakers max if it's just a 10 minutes presentation, and also practice that transition between one person to another person. And if you're doing virtually, is even more challenging in my opinion, because we got to ensure that everybody's connectivity is good enough, and we have all these other challenges that comes in when it's a virtual presentation. So that is something that I would suggest that you look into lah.
Thank you. So on that same topic, I think some of the other questions people are wondering is, with virtual presentations, if there happens to be a technical difficulty or something happens, internet connectivity and things like that, how would you
Mm.
suggest dealing with issues like that during a live presentation?
Yeah. So in this sense, where your planning then becomes important is also this. So if let's say you have 5 people in your team, and I say you just take 2 fellows to present, two group members to do the presentation, the final presentation rather. Make sure that you have the other 3 on standby mode that can jump in anytime to replace any failure mode lah. So in that sense, that backup is important, right? So this is my first preference to everybody, so that you have your 2 main final speakers, but the other 3 are anytime can replace any one of them for any segment of it, yeah? So that you become well versed. So that also becomes part and parcel of your preparation. Now, for whatever reason, if let's say all 5 of you need to present, and if there's any failure for 1 or 2 of that person, the other 3 person should able to step in and do that part lah. So that is also given. If there's all 5 of you fail for what, that is a very unlikely situation. But if that is the case, I think given today's context, people operating virtually, we are also very, I'll say, understanding enough and to know that sometimes it's because of the technicality, and this technicality is not because of your lack of preparation. There are many third parties, providers and things like that that's beyond your things. So if given the sense that if you really feel that if your 10 minutes presentation, among the 10 minutes, within that 3 minutes for whatever is lost in translation, you may want to request to maybe redo the entire thing when your connectivity improves later in that sense. So one key thing to really also prepare, and I've been doing this because over the entire lockdown period, I do a lot of virtual sessions as well. I come to realize that Wi-Fi can be quite hopeless in a lot of places. So one way to be sure to beat this is to really, just in case, you may need to plug into a landline somewhere. I know this is very old school. In fact, I use a MacBook, and when I wanted to do that, I didn't have a LAN port. I got to purchase an additional adapter for it, and thinking like, why do people still need LAN cables? But yeah, LAN cables are very secure connectivity. So this is something that you can't be, it's part of your preparation, and it's also good to showcase yourself next time in the real corporate world where you need to meet a client, you need to present. These are the same issues that you will face if we continue to, operate in this virtual format as well. I hope that answers the question. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that was a perfect answer. Before I ask any other questions that I've been receiving, is there anybody who would like to step forward and ask questions themselves?
Oh, can I ask a question?
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, so sorry, I came a little late because I had class, but I want to thank you first of all for coming here today and giving us your expertise. Really appreciate it. So my question's not as much focused on like the presentation aspect, but more on like your career in a way, because I'm quite interested in why you or what inspired you to go from consulting and having that firsthand experience to more of an instructional sort of role and being a leader and helping other people like discover better business practices. Like what inspired you? Like what clicked? If you want to share that.
Oh, so just a quick one, Frank. I'm still in consulting. I'm still running consulting in that sense. Just that part of my consultancy for what I'm doing with the undergrads in Malaysia is very specific, because most of my clientele I meet is actually HR personnel, the HR directors and HR managers. And one of the most consistent grievances they have is how unemployable our local university graduates are. And just to give you a perspective, we have about 100,000 of them every year in a population of 30 million. These are 100,000 of 300,000 that graduate every year. So it's 1/3 of them hits the unemployed number. And there's a host of reasons, from English proficiency to being more street smart and soft skill and all that knots. But I found that most of the time our local graduates have this challenge of really profiling themselves and really marketing themselves. And in today's world, I also encourage all of you, I think it's the same in many countries. The traditional way, when 20 years ago, when I went to university, doing well in my studies and universities, and when I come out and do apply for a job, no longer applies in today's context. You need to start thinking of the career that you want to do in your first or second year of study, and start connecting with the professionals that are out there in your potential industries that you join. So professional networking, given wherever you are, is a very critical point. And more critical point, I think, in our Asian context, because relationship is still very important in how we do business and how we progress in our career. So why I did it in the last 3 years is all really just to share this and send this message that you can't stick in the university these days. You need to get out of your university and start talking to all these business people, all these corporate managers, even your second year, even your first year, you have no right or no business to talk to them, but you need to start to talk to them now. So that two reasons: one, it will expand your knowledge so that you know what's happening in the current environment. Number two, they get to know you. And when you really do need your internship, you really do need a job, the whole focus is it should be just one message or one WeChat away. It shouldn't be you going through the lengthy process of applying, because there are just too many competition out there today. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Would anybody else like to ask a question? Okay, if not, we still have a few more here. And I think some of them are still along the lines of dealing with mishaps during presentations and things.
Okay.
Yeah, but also like some people are wondering, like, how would you start a presentation? Like, do you think it's okay to start with maybe like it's a joke for an icebreaker, or start with a formal introduction? What do you feel is the best way to kind of introduce and then lead straight into the presentation?
I think very importantly, the structure of the format of what you want to present becomes important. And if let's say your key message, so I re-emphasize that your key message is something that you want to share very strongly to impact your audience, then starting with a story may be good in that sense. Of course, telling a joke or maybe breaking the ice, so to say, it could be something that you want to consider. But very much depend on your audience. So I sat through many presentations, especially in Southeast Asia. I find that, that audience engagement in a formal presentation like this somehow becomes very challenging, especially you start your session with a question and hope for response, all right? And it becomes more awkward these days because if it's virtual, because you imagine I start my session and ask you all a question and hope for a response. A lot of times there's always an awkward silence. And that I find both in a virtual format or even in a face-to-face format in that sense. So thinking as such, starting with a story always still helps because you ease people through what is known to the unknown, or you ease people through what is something that is not so serious to something that you want to share that is more serious, in my opinion, of course. And as to have a sense of entertainment, especially a bit of humor and here and there, it is allowed. It is allowed. I wouldn't say encourage, but make sure you do it well, lah. So my only caveat to anybody who wants to tell a joke or want to be humorous, make sure you're funny. If not, it will come out very, very bad. That's why we pay top dollars to the comedians because of this. It's no simple skill set. So if you want to do that, make sure you practice your joke enough times and validate that it is funny and your audience would laugh. Yeah, that will get the connectivity and rapport. If not, then it's just like you are trying to pull a gimmick that everybody can see it is. So that I will say to that.
Okay, thank you. So I think those are the bulk of the questions I got. If there's anybody who has any final questions before we end the session.
So the final presentation is a virtual format like this, just to check. Then maybe I'll give some more details on virtual, since that is something that seems to be recurring. Besides the glitches and technical go wrong, are they?
Yeah, so the presentation will be virtual. And since we have to send these presentations, I think it's good for everybody here. We'll send these presentations off also to the to meet board and also to some professional judges and consultants. So we'll also be recording those on Zoom and things like that. Yeah, and I think maybe another thing is we also want to have a question and answer session for each presentation at the end. So how do you recommend people prepare for that? Like being asked more probing questions or things like that at the end of their presentation?
Okay, cool. So I'll address two things first. So let me give a perspective on preparing for a virtual presentation. I think that is very important. So just physicality itself, as you sit here and look at the screen, which I think all of you done for the last how many months in that sense, is very different from being a participant versus a presenter. So if you are a presenter, first and foremost, make sure that you elevate your your laptop or your computer to that your webcam is at your eye level. So every time when you are presenting, make sure you look at the webcam. Don't look at the screen, huh? Because looking at the webcam, your eye will help you to be more engaging with your audience. And you may want to elevate this. As I sit here today and talk to all of you, I'm actually elevating my laptop with a box. So this is a very simple technique that I learned and that's very useful. Versus that you have to look down. Some of you are looking down and some of you are looking up. Very clearly, you can see that that's not elevated. So that eye level contact will give you that perspective and confidence. Okay, let's start. Number two is dressing up for it. So dressing not so much to show the other side of how you are professional. That is also important. But from the psychology perspective, when you dress up for a big presentation like that, automatically you get into the groove that you are more confident. So don't think that because you are doing it in the comforts of your bed or doing the comforts in your room, you should dress up for this occasion as well. So that the moment you are in that formal kind of dressing, your psyche is very different, and the way you share will also be very different versus you just be casually wear what you want to wear in a normal sense. That is the second one. Third one, very importantly, is lighting. So make sure the light source is always in front of you and not behind you. And I don't even mean that you need to get one of those ring lights or external light. I don't even mean that. Just in a normal lighting sense, make sure that you position it in a way that is in front of you and not behind you. Because if it's behind you, then automatically your face will be very dark and can't be seen, right? Fourth one, before I come to question Q&A part, is your background. So make sure that you find something that is less distracting. I know, of course, we have all this option of putting, how say, a backdrop, virtual backdrop in that sense. But nothing still beats it from a physical one because sometimes your virtual backdrop, you have some interference in your face and things like that. That will create some sort of, distraction. So if you can find a physical backdrop that and you don't need a green screen or whatever, just to ensure this, whatever you wear, you are contrasting with what you have behind. Number one, it shouldn't be too distracting what you see, what people see from behind. Number two, have that contrast to what you wear. Because if you can do that, then people can pay more attention to you when you speak, rather than they get lost in the translation. Okay. Now, when we come to Q&A, as to your question, I think Q&A, it is a skill that you may want to, learn and practice as well. So one way of getting at it is to really listen to what the question is before you even think of an answer. Okay. A lot of times we want to make sure that we are thinking on the fly, and then that shows how sharp we are. But that could be a point that we become tone deaf to what we want to listen, and we just pick up what we think it is and start to answer. So listening skills become very important, especially during question time. When the question comes, just take the question, listen to the question as the question. Don't start to formulate the solution up first in your brain, because that will have a very significant role, right? Two, you may actually delay time, or you may actually practice some methodology of paraphrasing the question so that when you answer it, it becomes in the structure that within your control. So for instance, if let's say you ask a question, then you take the question and you paraphrase it again to seek confirmation from the person who are asking your question, so that as you paraphrase it, you are structuring it in a way that you are comfortable to answer. Okay, number one. Number two, by paraphrasing it, also you seek confirmation whether you heard the question correctly or whether you understand whatever being asked in a correct manner, so that you give a proper answer. So a lot of times the case that you find that people may not able to do this and they steer off the topic or off the tangent. So paraphrasing becomes very, very important. And then the other way of looking at it is also be much more on the dot to say that sometimes there are certain questions to catch you whether you have done your homework. And if you have not done your homework, try not to pull a fast one, so to say, because it's very clear-cut within your presentation point and within what you do. And that's where some element of humility and also honesty becomes very important. And when you come across like that, that genuineness actually will help you to be more stronger in your case. Hope that helps.
Thank you. I think that was great. So we don't have any more questions. So I think just from NYU Shanghai to me, we want to thank you so much for doing this talk and answering questions. I think it was super informative and we all learned a lot. So yeah, thank you so much. And Ryan just posted your LinkedIn profile. So I think if you guys want, you can have a chance to reach out to him there or talk to him, which is great. So once again, thank you so much. And I think we all really loved the presentation.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, thank you so
all.
much, Mui Han. Do you mind staying a bit for the call? After the call, staying a bit after.
Ken.
Yeah, so Mui Han, thank you so much again. Could you send me your mailing address so that we can send you a gift as a token of appreciation? If maybe in the WhatsApp group we have.
Ken. My physical mailing address, not my.
Yeah, you can send me your companies or your personal, whatever you prefer.
I work from home anyway. I don't have company address.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, I mean, everyone else, if you guys are have somewhere to go or busy right now, I know it's already 10, you guys free to leave. If any of you want to hang around after and ask any other questions, that's also okay. It's up to you.
Oh, are you still free to answer like a few questions?
Yeah, sure.
So I came a little late, which is I'm a little disappointed because I was really looking forward to this like speaker event. But what exactly did you cover in like the first like 30 minutes? Sorry, I know it's kind of repetitive, but I don't want to miss out on anything important.
Okay, I think they have a recording which probably later you can get from Ryan. But more importantly, for presentation, I was talking more about the focus.